And so I'm learning these things, becoming a new Christian, reading the Bible for the first time in my life. And what's interesting, I need to point this out. So my motivation at that time for becoming a Christian was my life isn't going the way I wanted to. Like, yeah, on the outside it looked good. You know, I have a business and I'm setting my own schedule and I get to do some traveling and I'm meeting cool people and you know, in the business it's not just making me money, but it's something that I believe in. But I just wasn't happy. And I was trying to, like, oh, if I just do this, maybe I'll feel that, or if I just have this, or, you know, all these types of things. And so when I just called out, like, you know, in my mind to God, and I did answer an altar call at a non-denominational church and walked up and gave my life to Jesus, but I realized that I was coming to God, and this is only after the fact. I was coming to God because of selfish reasons. I was broken, and I wanted to be fixed. And there's not necessarily initially anything wrong with that, because as we study and understand God's character, He meets us where we're at. He accommodates. He does want us to be whole. He does want us to be fixed and content and peaceful. But it actually doesn't come through focusing on ourselves. There's the counterintuitive part. You get all those things by focusing on Him, by focusing on His Son. And as I started to study the Bible and started to study the life of Jesus, that's when I started to see myself in a clearer light. I started to see that selfishness that had motivated me for all of my life. I started to see how I hadn't treated my parents with the respect and gratitude that I should have, and how I was mean to my sister at times, and how I was mean to other people, and how I was just, again, taking advantage of people, and just the dating world and the party scene and all this stuff, the manipulation that goes on and objectifying people, and just seeing all that. And I was like seeing myself in a way that I couldn't, apart from viewing the life of Jesus. And when Jesus started learning these things about, if you love me, keep my commandments, and all these beautiful teachings. So then seeing the law is valid and relevant, but that God hasn't given us a law to be rules that He imposes to enslave us and to keep us in bondage, that He will cut us off from and will be eternally lost if we don't follow them perfectly. That's that spirit of legalism. That's the spirit that got, again, His people, Israel, in trouble at the time of Jesus' ministry on earth. They were taking the law of God and making it into rules instead of principles. God's law is meant to do several things. It's meant to show us how we're out of harmony, a mirror. So it shows us, here's God's law, which reflects His character. So it mirrors Him, and simultaneously it shows me my true condition, which I couldn't see until I looked at that. And then that ultimately was bringing me to the feet of Jesus. So to use a Bible verse, Romans 5:20, the law was entering into my life, into my heart, and my sins, my motives were abounding. But where sin abounds, grace does much more abound. So the grace of God, that God and His Son saying, I've been with you this whole time. I'm the one giving you life, and I don't condemn you. I've seen your selfishness. I've seen your cruelty. I've seen, again, and I had wrestles, as most young men, with lust, getting into pornography, all of these things being in the world, and all of these things. And God's saying, I know all of these things, but I don't condemn you. And it was through these revelations that's when my life really began to change. I started to receive a new motive, a new heart, as the Bible says. You know, and God makes the appeal to us, my son, my daughter, give me your heart. You can't give somebody your heart who you're afraid of. You can't do it. It's impossible. That's force. It's coercion. That's not who God is. The Bible says that there is no darkness in Him at all. And if He doesn't even think a single evil thought toward us, as it says in Jeremiah, my thoughts toward you are thoughts of peace and not evil, to give you an expected end, then again, He's much different than what I thought. And so I started to begin to taste and see, and that started changing me, because instead of focusing on my brokenness, I began focusing on Jesus' wholeness. And again, the Bible says in John 10:10 that He came so that we would have life and have it more abundantly. And that's to be able to learn what it means to truly have contentment and fulfillment. And to find rest, not in trying to achieve something and then I can rest, but rest knowing that I'm loved not because of what I do, not because of what I believe. I'm loved because I'm a son of God. And it's in that revelation, knowing that that's where my value is and that's where my identity lies, that was giving me the capacity, it was the catalyst that would enable Jesus to work in my life, to manifest a life in harmony with the principles of God's law. Which is what? Love. Self-sacrifice. So I started to see that, and my motives began to change. I didn't want to be selfish anymore.